Hello and welcome to our final scene in William Shakespeare's Macbeth. Today we're looking at 5-8 and we are going to close out the play. So thank you so much for joining me on this journey, whether you've watched from the beginning, which was a long time ago, or just recently got into it. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. It's 28 scenes, this particular edition of the play. So that's quite a few videos and I hope they've been helpful for you. If you've gotten any value out of these videos, please consider liking or subscribing to see future videos. That helps out a lot. Also, monetarily, purchasing field notes with the code in the description for 10% off. There we go. For 10% off is incredibly helpful to the channel. Make a lot more from that than I do the ad revenue. And if you're interested in picking the next series, you can vote on Patreon through the rest of the week to determine what live stream we do next: Macbeth, A Midsummer Night's Dream, Pygmalion, or Antigone. But without further ado, let's dive in to 5-8. Okay, so we're now in the midst of the battle, and Macbeth says to us, "Why should I play the Roman fool and die on mine own sword?" So this would be the reference to another Shakespeare play, right? It's talking about Brutus and Cassius from Julius Caesar and how both of them die. "Whiles I see lives, the gashes do better upon them." So he's not going to take his own life. He's going to take out the enemy as much as he can. But then Macduff enters. And Macduff says to him, "Turn, hellhound, turn." Macbeth responds, "Of all men else I have avoided thee. But get thee back. My soul is too much charged with blood of thine already." So Macbeth says he doesn't want to fight Macduff because he has too much of Macduff's blood on his soul already. That, of course, is because he's killed Macduff's entire family. So it's both a warning and an insult, right? And Macduff says, "I have no words. My voice is in my sword. Thou bloodier villain than terms can give thee out." And they start fighting. So in the script, it just says fight, alarum, like, screaming and bells and trumpets and commotion, all that stuff. But that's obviously going to be expounded upon in any good production, right? They don't just fight and then they go back into the words. They're going to be fighting, maybe fighting while some of these next lines are delivered. So what I'm trying to get at here is that this is a big fight. This is a big showdown between Macbeth and Macduff at the end. Usually in Shakespeare, the stage direction is they fight, he dies, or whoever, right? We saw that with Banquo. And those fights are usually made longer in an actual stage production, but not terribly long necessarily. This one is a long fight, though. Macbeth says to him, "Thou losest labor," right? Like you're wasting your energy. "As easy mayest thou the intrenchant air," intrenchant means unable to be cut, "intrenchant air with thy keen sword impress as make me bleed." So you have a better shot cutting the air and making it bleed than you would me. "Let fall thy blade on vulnerable crests. I bear a charmed life, which must not yield to one of woman born." So he says, go fight people who can actually be hurt, right? Vulnerable crests. "I bear a charmed or charmed life" is a really famous phrase that gets used all the time, right? We still to this day in like news reporting and stuff, you'll hear the phrase, they bear a charmed life if a person survives what seems to be an unsurvivable situation. In Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad, there's a hippo that the English keep attacking and trying to kill, and they can't. And Marlowe tells us that the hippo bears a charmed life, right? That's a reference back to Macbeth, right? Cannot be hurt because of this prophecy. None of a woman born can hurt you if you're no one born of a woman. So he says, "which must not yield to one of woman born." And Macduff says, "Despair thy charm, and let the angel," angel here means devil or demon, right? "Let the angel whom thou still hast served tell thee Macduff was from his mother's womb untimely ripped." So this is a huge twist in the play, right? This is the big technicality that undoes Macbeth. Macduff tells Macbeth that he is not born of a woman. He was ripped from his mother's womb mother's womb, right? So a cesarean section, a C-section. Now, obviously, being born via C-section is still being born. It's still being born from a woman. It's not like you were born like from another source, right? You're still born of a woman. It's a different type of birth. And I imagine it would not have been used very frequently back then. It's kind of not like a last ditch thing nowadays, but it's not the plan for most people giving birth, unless there's a complication going into it to have a C-section. But obviously back then, without medical advances that we have, it would be a pretty bloody thing, right? He says ripped from his mother's womb. So the apparition, if we think back to the vision or the spirit that says to Macbeth, fear none born of a woman, it is a bloody child that says that, right? So we have this technicality. Obviously, Macduff is born of a woman, but he's not born in the most technical sense. So because of that, Macbeth's charmed protection is invalid. And Macbeth says, accursed be that tongue that tells me so, for it hath cowed my better part of man. So that tongue that tells me so is Macduff's, but is also the witches, right? Curse them for what they've said. And be these juggling fiends, which is the witches, no more believed that palter with us in double sense, that keep the word of promise to our ear and break it to our hope. I'll not fight with thee. So Macbeth decides not to fight, right? He's been deceived by these witches, and he doesn't want to go through with the fight, because these witches, who he says should no more be believed. Now he doesn't want to believe the witches after everything that's happened. They use this double sense, that equivocation that we talked about, that keep the word of promise to our ear, but break it to our hope. That these good things that they've told him, these promises of rewards and protection, have only undone him, right? He left the castle and sent forces out of the castle because of what the witches said about Malcolm reaching it, with the woods reaching the castle. And now he's fighting Macduff thinking he was safe when he actually wasn't. So he tries to back out of it now, but it's too late. Macduff says, then yield thee, coward, and live to be the show and gaze of the time. We'll have thee as our rare monsters are, painted upon a pole and underwrit, here may you see the tyrant. So Macduff says, well, if you surrender to me, we're going to turn you into an attraction, right? We'll have you painted on a pole that here you may see the tyrant. We'll be displaying you in your defeat and in your humiliation. And Macbeth turns back from that, right? He's going to fight him now, because Macbeth refuses to be a coward. One of the main reasons he's in this situation is he refuses to be thought of as less than a man or a coward. And Macbeth says, I will not yield to kiss the ground before young Malcolm's feet, and to be baited with the rabbler's curse, right? So again, Malcolm, especially at the beginning of the play, did not seem like a good person to be a ruler. He was almost captured in that first fight. He seemed very naive and incapable of doing the things a ruler had to do. So Macbeth is not going to surrender to Malcolm and be kissing the ground before his feet. He says, though Brenham Wood be come to Dunsinane, and though Brenham Wood be come to Dunsinane, and thou opposed being of no woman born, yet I will try the last. I mean, he's going to fight him anyway. Before my body I throw my warlike shield. Lay on, Macduff, and damned be him that first cries, hold, enough, right? So hold is what you yell to stop a fight. We still use that in stage combat to this day. You say hold to stop the fight. So he says, damned be the person who cries stop, hold, or enough, that he's going to fight him to the death. And according to the stage direction, they exit fighting, more alarums. They enter fighting, and Macbeth is slain. So this is played out so many different ways by different fight choreographers and directors and actors. I don't think there's usually an exit entrance sort of thing. At least I've never seen one, but that is what the script says. But it's a long fight. But Macbeth dies. He is slain. Macduff exits, carrying off Macbeth's body. Then we have retreat and flourish, enter with drum and colors, Malcolm, Seward, Ross, Thanes, and soldiers. So the rest of the people on Malcolm's forces who were fighting. Malcolm says, I would the friends we miss were safe arrived, meaning like, I hope that the people who aren't here have lived. Seward says, some must go off, and yet these I see so great a day as this is cheaply bought. Meaning we got victory and we didn't pay a huge price for it. Most people survived. Malcolm says, Macduff is missing and your noble son. Ross says, Ross always giving bad news in this play. Ross says, your son, my lord, has paid a soldier's debt. He only lived but till he was a man. The which no longer had his prowess confirmed in the unshrinking station where he fought, but like a man he died. So Ross now tells Seward that his son died fighting. Seward says, then he is dead, aye, and brought off the field. Your cause of sorrow must not be measured by his worth, for then it hath no end. Right? So he died, but he died fighting. He died a hero. And Seward says, had he his hurts before, I on the front. So before here means on the front, as Ross confirms. I, yes, on the front. So before as opposed to behind you. So what Seward is getting at here is he wants to make sure that his son's wounds were on the front of his body, not the back, because that would seem to imply that lost the script on the final stream. That would seem to imply that he died fighting as opposed to running away. And that's really important to this General Seward, who says, why then God's soldier be he? Had I as many sons as I have hairs, I would not wish them a fairer death. And so his knell is knolled, right? So his knell being knolled is like, his death is recognized, right? Respected and honored, right? Like ringing the bell in honor of someone dying. So this is a wild thing to me. I know it's a tiny part of the play right at the very end. A lot of directors cut this exchange, but it's wild to me because it enforces this warrior culture of the play, right? This man finds out his son has died, but the important thing is how he died to him. And he's like, well, I hope that, what is the exact line? Had I as many sons as hairs, right? If I had many, many sons, I hope they all die that way. What a great way to die. And I'm sure he's trying to comfort himself for this terrible news that he has. But again, that warrior culture is brought in here of honor and how to carry yourself in these battles. Malcolm says he's worth more sorrow, and that I'll spend for him. He's worth no more. They like, come on, seriously. Like, no, he's worth what he's worth. They say he parted well and paid his score, and so God be with him. Here comes newer comfort. Like moving right on from that character's death. But it is a long play, and you got to finish it up here. Macduff enters, crazy stage direction, enters carrying Macbeth's severed head. Macduff says, hail, king, for so thou art. Behold where stands the usurper's cursed head. Usurper is someone who takes power from someone. The time is free. I see thee compassed with thy kingdom's peril. Kingdom's pearl, right? Like his royal jewel stuff. That speak my salutation in their minds, whose voices I desire aloud with mine. Hail, King of Scotland. And then everyone says, hail, King of Scotland. So Malcolm is now the king. And usually in this, Malcolm is then given the severed head of Macbeth. So he's holding his head. And he says, we shall not spend a large expense of time before we reckon with your several loves and make us even with you. So he's going to promote people who have done this, fought for him. My thanes and kinsmen henceforth be earls, the first that ever Scotland in such an honor named. So they're no longer thanes, they're earls, right? They've gone up in the ranks, like he's rewarded the nobles right away. What's more to do, which would be planted newly with the time, as calling home our exiled friends abroad that fled the snares of watchful tyranny, producing forth the cruel ministries of this dead butcher and his fiend-like queen, who, as 'tis thought, by self and violent hands took off her life. So there we get, there we get a little detail of how Lady Macbeth died. According to Malcolm, it seems like she took her own life. This and what needful else that calls upon us by the grace of grace who will perform in measure, time, and place. So thanks to all at once, and to each one whom we invite to see us crowned at Scone. So flourish and all exit, right? The coronation of Malcolm becoming king. That the rightful king is back on the throne. And there's some stuff in. First off, congratulations. It was your first time reading Macbeth. You finished a masterpiece. Well done. But to talk about this final image on the stage and through line of a theme, there is some stuff in the play that really pushes the narrative of James being the rightful king, and that this is a play about an interruption in the lineage of the kings, but it is a momentary interruption, that we get back to the right person being on the throne. So what I'm thinking of is like the Crack of Doom line, where you see the 8 lines of kings, starting with Banquo, going all the way to James, right? But Banquo is not a relative of Malcolm, or if they're relatives, they're distant relatives, right? Fleance is not Malcolm's son. So Fleance still has to get to the throne. And it's really, really interesting to think about how, yes, Malcolm is the rightful person to be on the throne, but that is not the line of kings that's supposed to lead to James. So there is going to be more change of power. As long as a throne exists, there is going to be people fighting for it. Right? Akira Kurosawa's Japanese take on this film is called Throne of Blood in English, because people fighting for the throne. There's a famous HBO show called Game of Thrones, right? People fighting for the throne. As long as there's power to be grabbed, people will try and grab it. And often that quest for power will lead to corruption. And there's been some really clever takes on this ending that have played out like different ideas of what might happen next. There's been final scenes after this of Fleance going to the witches, or Donalbain going to the witches, that there's this cycle of violence that will pick back up. And even if you don't add something like that, just the idea of, you know, Malcolm holding a severed head shows that thematically in this play, this throne leads to bloodshed. Bloodshed to take it, and bloodshed to take it back. That we are celebrating a peace, but it feels very momentary. It feels like something is going to happen next. And in that sense, it's a great end to a great play, because it gets you thinking and wondering where we go from here. It feels like the end, but it's not a complete resting place. It haunts you as you continue to think about what might happen next. So that is William Shakespeare's Macbeth. If you're interested in what we're going to live stream next, I'm going to leave that poll open for about a week. And then whatever is selected, we'll kick right into and work through during July. In the meantime, look out for other videos. There's going to be a video coming out, if not tomorrow, then the day after, on one of my all-time favorite poems, The Lake Isle of Innisfree by William Butler Yeats. Great poem if you're in need of a vacation or considering living off the grid. So definitely subscribe or tune back into the channel to see that and other videos coming in the future. Thank you so much for joining me in this series. Happy reading, and I'll see you in the next one.